Hi, this is 365801 and this is another BL year in review video for 2021, and this video is all about the 2021 releases that I purchased. Now, I have done a video like this before. I did one back for 2019 releases, and I specifically looked at what I had purchased and did a kind of review of all of my purchases versus my reading of those purchases for 2019, and I gave a few other stats and things like that as well. Now, last year for my review videos, I had actually planned to do the same thing again, except I split my videos into overall 2020 purchases, and I never got around to making my part 2, which was to specifically look at the 2020 releases and analyse that as well. So I guess I can exclusively show you some footage that I never got to show last year because I just didn't finish editing the video. As you can see, this is all of my 2020 releases that I purchased in 2020, and also all of the releases that I read versus the ones that were unread. So all of the ones that are read are on the right hand side, and those that were unread are on the left hand side. So you can see I read most of what I purchased that was a 2020 release in 2020. I will go through some more of the statistics at the end of this video, just so that you can compare and contrast over the years. Now, before I show you all of my 2021 releases that I purchased in 2021, I thought I would show you three kind of interesting ones. They felt new, but they weren't actually released in 2021, really. So the first one is Moto Hagio's A Drunken Dreams. This felt like it was a new release because it had been such a long time, and they finally reissued it. They reprinted it and released it out into the world, so everyone who hadn't managed to pick it up the first time was able to get a copy. And so it was a brand new purchase, and it hadn't been available for me to buy, but it suddenly was in 2021. So it feels like it's a 2021 release, but it's not actually. In the same way, What Did You Eat Yesterday Volume 9? I mean, for goodness sake, this was going for £100, and I managed to pick it up as soon as Kodansha had purchased Vertical. They were able to re-release some of the issues and volumes, and everyone was suddenly able to pick up Volume 9. So if you bought it for, a very high price, trying to get a copy, it's a bit disappointing. A couple of years later, it's available for recommended retail price. I got it for a really good deal. It felt, though, like it was something special because we hadn't been allowed to get a copy for such a long time if you hadn't picked it up the first time. Now, the one in the front, this is one that I usually include, and for the last 2 years I have included it in a lot of my wrap-ups because it is the third volume in the With or Without series by J.L. Langley. This is With Abandon. And I did actually read With Abandon in 2021. I just didn't read this particular volume. And that's because I assumed we weren't going to get it, because even though one had been released every year for the past 3 years now, this one didn't look like it was going to happen due to the fact that the author had kind of disappeared from social media and had there'd been no news that we were going to actually get this. So I read it digitally and then it actually was released. So I didn't actually read this particular volume. So it kind of feels weird to say I read it, but I didn't read it, if you know what I mean. Anyway, these three I'm going to kind of put a pin in and leave to the side. There's usually little caveats with this. When you're doing statistics, these three don't count. So here it is. These are all of the 2021 releases that I purchased in 2021. There's not actually that many. It's 19 here shown, 20 if you include With Abandon. That's what I had done in the past, so around 20 volumes I would say is what I got for new releases in 2021. It's not actually that many, but it is significant because it's the highest percentage overall. So if we look back over the years, in 2019 I got 25 new releases for 2019, but 172 volumes overall, so the percentage was 14.5% of all of my purchases were new releases. In 2020 I got 19 volumes that were released in 2022, and that was out of 165, so that was 11.5%, so even less in 2020. So in 2021 I got around 20 volumes out of 118, and that's 17.5%. So this is the most I have actually purchased in the year that it was released. So it doesn't feel like there's a lot, but it's actually a higher percentage overall. Now, as I did in the previous 2 years, I've arranged them specifically in piles of read and unread. This time the read is on the left and the unread is on the right. So I have read 11 volumes and the unread there is 8 volumes. Although I do have to once again have a wee caveat. I have 2 volumes of Twittering Birds Volume 4. One I took out of its plastic and one I left in its plastic. So technically I haven't read the one in the plastic, but I have read the one out of the plastic. So I put one on either end of the piles. It's like, well, one was read, one wasn't. So I know exactly which one was which. When it comes to the percentages, with Abandon, if we include that as well, it is 60% read versus 40% unread. And this is actually pretty average around my normal amount. So in 2019 I read 15 out of the 25, 10 unread, and that's 60%. In 2020 there was 19 volumes, 13 were read and 6 unread, so it was 68%. And then this year it's around 20, so 11 and 8 with Abandon, and it's around 60%. So it's around the average amount that I read versus I don't read for the new purchases for that year. Now, there can be any number of reasons as to why I don't read a brand new purchase, but I've kind of distilled it down into 2 main ones. One being that it's a December purchase or a November purchase, so a fairly recent purchase, and I just haven't got round to reading it yet, especially if it was something that I got at Christmas time for a Christmas present, or for around the new year when I see family, and so I haven't actually had the opportunity to sit down and read that particular title yet, but it usually gets read in the January or the February of the next year. If we look at the 2019 video, we can see that there is 2 piles for read, and the pile at the back was the unread, and many of them were December hauls, and I read them quite quickly in 2020. So for example, Monster and the Beast I read, and I Hear the Sunspot I read, the High School Life Fidanchi I read, so many of them I read very, very quickly. And similarly, we can look at 2020 and we can see the read pile on the right and the unread on the left. In that pile there is Yes, No or Maybe, and that was a Christmas gift, and so I did read it in the January straight away. It was one of those things that I wanted to read, so I did get to read it in 2021 in January. So this was something that I know is something that happens with new purchases that come into the collection around December. Now, if we look at 2021's pile on the right hand side, all of the MXTX volumes I do plan on reading fairly soon, so that is something that I think will continue into 2022. Now, the second reason I think that some newer purchases don't get read is generally because they are part of a series and they're either continuing a series and I don't have the volume beforehand, or I don't have the volume after and I want to get them. So generally they're continuing series, and this is the same in 2019. I have Sweet Blood, but I don't have a complete set, and I still don't have a complete set. Crimson Spell, I didn't have volume 4 yet, but I don't have the full complete set together. Some of it's in my other collection, some of it's in this collection where I am just now. In the same way that in 2020 I've got Yarachin Bitch Club Volume 2, but I don't have Volume 1, and I don't have Volume 3. Volume 4 is coming out pretty soon. Given Volume 2, at that point I didn't have a Volume 1. I do now, but I don't have a Volume 3 and 4. So I still don't want to sit down and read it if I can't read the rest of the series. Deadlock as well is another example where I have Deadlock Volume 2 here in this collection, and I have a Volume 1 in the other collection. So if we look at the 2021 purchases, will I be reading the other ones soon? MADK, I did think I could just read it straight away, but a lot of people have said when I posted my manga haul, wait until you get Volume 1, it'll make more sense, you'll enjoy it more. Cherry Magic, I've only got Volume 3, I don't have the rest of the series yet, so I need to get Volume 1 and 2. Jealousy, the same there, I've got Volume 3, but not 1 and 2. So it does seem like those are the two reasons. One, it's a fairly new purchase and it gets read very quickly in the new year, or two, it's part of a continuing series and I don't have either the successive or preceding volumes. Now, the other thing that I found really interesting about specifically looking at the purchases for each year is how it compares to the rest of the collection that I hauled. And in 2019, I read 28 out of 147 out of print or older titles, which is only 19% compared to the 60 that were new 2019 releases. Overall, my reading was only 22%. So it's very clear that in 2019, I was more likely to read a new release than I was an out of print or slightly older title. In 2020, I read 35 out of 146, which was 24%, so much better than 2019, but still nowhere near as good as the 68% of 2020 releases. Overall, it was 29% for the full collection that I hauled into 2020, and still nowhere near the 68%. So once again, it is very clear that I'm more likely to read a new release than I am to read an older or out of print title that I'm bringing into my collection. So I wondered if 2021 was going to be any different, and unfortunately it's pretty much the same. I read 10 out of 93, which is only 10.7%. This is pretty bad compared to the 60% for newer releases, when I read 21 out of 118 overall, which is 18.5%, still nowhere near the 60%. So this is just a continuing issue. I am much more likely to read a new release that I bring in, something that is going to make me want to buy it and read it straight away into the collection, rather than an out of print or a slightly older title. So it is very clear from my statistics and my data that I am actually 40% more likely to read a new title that's released that year than I am to read anything else that I bring into my collection. So I'm really glad that I've been able to complete some of the publishers, so I'm much more likely to read what I am actually bringing in. So if I do buy any new titles, I think it's going to be obvious that I will read it, at least a 60% chance that it will be read by the end of the year. I do like what I got from my 2021 releases. I do feel like I usually do a little review of them as well. So here we've got some shoujobi. I've never had shoujobi. It's the first one I have in my collection. I have some June manga, which continues this series, obviously 2 of the Twittering Birds, so I'm very, very happy and excited about having these 2. Dick Fight Island was a new series. Finder continues. Don't Be Cruel continues. World's Greatest First Love continues, Therapy Game continues. I Hear the Sunspot I thought might be the final volume, but it turns out no, so we'll be happily continuing with more of that. BL Metamorphosis was the first volume I brought in. It's volume 3, and I read it even though it was in the middle of the series. I don't care. I do need to now pick up the rest of that. And BL Fans Love My Brother was kind of like a one-shot. I would happily read more from this author. I really enjoyed it. Over on the other side, we've got obviously continuing series or mid-point series. So Jealousy and Cherry Magic and MADK. I got them because they were good deals, and they're kind of in the middle of a series, so they now need to be collected. Candy Colour Paradox is the only one on that pile that I feel like I don't have a good excuse for not reading in 2021. I have all 4 volumes here in this collection. I have access to this one. I should have sat down and read it. I think because I've had issues with the translation in the past, it's something like, oh, I'm going to have to actually do this. And plus, there's usually quite a lot of meat to the story in each volume. I feel like I really do need to reread some of the previous volumes to understand where I am in the story. I forget. I'm an old lady. I forget. So yeah, and obviously 3 fabulous volumes of novel series of the Chinese BL MXTX has written. I'm really excited about reading these, and I probably will be reading them in the first quarter of 2021, as more volumes will be released as well. So yeah, overall, I'm really pleased with my 2021 releases that I've purchased. It's not a huge amount. It's roughly around the same as last year, and I'm quite happy with that actually. I think this is a good amount because I'm more likely to get good deals the later I leave it, or at least that used to be the case, but because we've had issues with producing them and lots of people buying them, the increase in popularity, it's less likely that I'm going to get good bargains and good deals. So I might be more inclined to buy from shops in person that do deals. So for example, Forbidden Planet, they do a buy 2 get 1 free, and that's more likely to result in a much better deal than hunting around online for them. Or I wait 2 years and see and hope that I can get a good deal on them, or get them with great reductions and things like that. So I'm not too sure about going forward in 2022. Gosh, I was like, which year is it we're in? How I'm going to manage my 2022 releases and what I'm going to pick up. There are so many that I'm kind of looking out for and I'm looking forward to reading, but I am going to try and limit my spending quite a lot. So out of print titles versus new. New always wins. New always wins. Anyway, I hope you found this video interesting. It's longer than it should be, but I do find my statistics quite interesting. I hope you found it interesting. Thanks for sticking me to the end of this video. Remember, every day is a BL day. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you want. I make videos about yaoi, BL, manga, male romance, and all that good stuff. Take care, everyone. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!